How about it, y'all? You got Hawg. I'm your Southern Diablo 4 resource. Thanks for stopping by. So I wanted to show you kind of a leveling druid that I've been working on. It's a variation of pulverize. It's a little bit off meta, but there's really super professional players out there that will find the best absolute badass whatever exploits and all that. But the game's brand new, so I wanted to go through and figure out a couple of things with the druid that you could do instead of going one way, you know, play the streamer's way and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to show you what I've been doing, playing with poison damage, stacking that on my Paragon board to stack with the earth damage, and it's actually doing really well. And it helps if you're having spirit problems like I am, and you can't find the aspect that you need to keep that regenerated all the time. So alright, here's the build in action. Cast your barrier, cast your poison creeper, hit trample, and you can pulverize around. It should proc your lucky hit, and you can hit poison creeper again. You see they melt pretty fast, not as fast as just straight pulverize with the, you know, renewable spirit all the time, but still pretty fun build, still doing pretty good damage in World Tier 4. Alright, let me show you what makes the build work. It's basically, you need your same pulverize aspects, with the addition of a couple others, and then where the magic happens is in the Paragon board. So first aspect we're going to take, this one is purely for defense. This is actually a pretty tanky build. Well, for my eyes, it's pretty tanky. It wasn't before until I started making these modifications, but one of the most important aspects is this: you gain X amount of armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 50%. I've got a 40% roll on this one. This really helps. So anytime you're doing damage whatsoever, you get that damage reduction. So we're taking that. We want cooldown, we want life, we want healing. Well, healing receives kind of optional, but you want armor. You want stuff that's going to keep you alive on your helm. You want defensive stats. Moving on to the chest piece. So this one we've got, when you're fortify, your earth skills gain 2 ranks. So just one thing I want to point out with this, there is kind of a bug that I'm noticing. When you look at your tooltip, it's saying +0 skills, or +0 to earth skills are fortified. So I don't know if this is actually working or not like it's supposed to, but in theory it should, so it's on here. You could replace this with something else if you have something better that you feel would be more tanky, if you notice that it's not working. But you need to look at your tooltip and see if it's actually proccing or not. I have put a bug report up on the Blizzard Diablo 4 forums to let them know that I don't know if it's working. I haven't noticed a difference with or without it, so let me know in the comments below if you've noticed this is working or not. Next one, we're going our gloves. We want 3 ranks of pulverize. We want lucky hit chance as much as you can. You want to try to get lucky hit chance everywhere you can, because the build's going to rely on a lot of lucky hit chance. We're taking all stats, and we're taking critical strike damage with earth skills. That's just the way it rolled. Critical strike damage overall would be way better. There's still some room to improve on these gloves, but the aspect is the trample now summons 6 landslide pillars, dealing 70%. Wow, you can't even talk. 76% damage. Okay, so now that makes trample also a nature magic skill. Take that in mind. All right, so on our breeches, we've got the duration of earthen bulwark is increased by 6 seconds. In addition, killing an enemy with an earth skill replenishes 294 of that earthen bulwark's barrier. So basically what we want is a barrier up all the time. It helps keep us alive, helps keep our fortify up, because the amount of damage that we're doing is based on the amount of fortify that we have. We need to make sure it's up at all times. So that just helps that stay up, and we also have an aspect that's going to play off that as well. Moving on to boots, damage from earth skills slow enemies by X%. Okay, so this is every time you hit an enemy with an earth skill, they're automatically crowd control, they're slow. Crowd controls everything in Diablo 4. You want to make sure all of your enemies are crowd controlled in some way, shape, or form. It's going to help boost your damage. Remember the damage buckets theory that we looked at before the game launched. When you're looking at all of these stats and all of this stuff, you want to make sure you're hitting all of these buckets on the checklist, okay? Again, so here we're taking some move speed, we're taking strength for armor. I know some of the other build guides aren't taking that, but it's a quick, cheap way to get armor out of strength. We also got move speed and all stats, spirit cost reduction, just your basic defense stuff. Really helps me to have spirit cost reduction on this gear, because it is pretty heavily spirit reliant, and if you're missing the aspect to do it, Earth Sign Horror, I believe it's called, you're not doing much with spirit regen, okay? All right, so onto our two-handed weapon. This to me is very, very, very important. Probably one of the most important pieces of the build besides your jewelry. We're taking a two-hand and we're going axe. So the reason we're going axe is the 84% damage to healthy enemies. So our goal as a druid is to wake up, damn it. Our goal for a druid is to try to one-shot as much as possible. So we've got that 84% damage to healthy enemies. That is absolutely huge. So that's why we want the axe. That's why we're taking the axe. The aspect that we're putting on that is the pulverize shockwave. So it turns pulverize into a shockwave, and it deals 192% or whatever it rolled damage to enemies in its path. So that literally makes you be able to just shoot out a shockwave and deal damage to enemies in front of you, which turns into distant enemies that you can stack on some of that damage on the backside, on the passive side of the skill tree. Very, very, very important thing. I tried to play half of the game without it, and it's less than mediocre. You get that one aspect, it fixes your whole pulverized build, okay? Moving on to the jewelry. So I've got this bottom one, I've got deal 23% increased damage while you have a barrier active. So that's why we're stacking that 6-second duration aspect on Earthen Bulwark, as well as every time we kill enemies, it replenishes that barrier. You can keep your Earthen Bulwark up for quite a bit of time, which means you're going to deal almost 25% more damage just by having that barrier up. So that's your damage multiplier. You want to make sure that's on at all times, or as much as you can, hence why we're stacking cooldown, okay? All right, so the middle ring, we've got Pulverize is now an Earth skill, and Pulverize continues to cast spikes after you cast it for X amount of damage. You see this one's bugged here. We've been seeing some bugs on the damage numbers. It's actually about 300, close to 300 over the actual roll, which is pretty interesting. But that one right there, paired with the shockwave, makes you do, again, I'll show you, there's your shockwave and there's your tectonic spikes that come out. Pretty cool. And the last one with your amulet, your core skills deal up to 48% increased damage based on your fortify. So that's what I was saying a bit ago. You got to make sure you have your fortify up at all times, have your barrier up. We're using debilitating roar. That's your damage reduction, keeps everything slow, all of that. So almost 50%. That's why it's on the amulet. So if you do have this, make sure you put it on the amulet. At least that's the way that I do it, because I want as much extra multiplier as possible. And we're putting skulls in there because the armor, I want as much armor as I possibly can have. And then as far as gems go in the weapon, we're going critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. So the way that I figure out what gems I want to use is I come over here to my materials and stats, and I scroll down to offensive, and I start looking at all my different stats and all that I have here. So first thing I noticed was my vulnerable damage was only at like 30%. So that's something that I really needed to address immediately. And that's one way to fix it is with those two gems. So now it's almost at 50% vulnerable damage. And remember, you want vulnerable on anything that you can get, or you want to try to have vulnerable up all the time, because vulnerable enemies take 20% more damage, just a base number. Very important to have vulnerable on everything, or if you're playing in a party, at least have somebody that's bringing vulnerability to the party. Because why not just have that extra 20% multiplier? You need it, okay? It is one of the buckets. So that's the way that I determine. If this was higher from a piece of jewelry or whatever, then you could put like blues in here for increased damage to crowd control, all of that. But my damage versus crowd control is almost 85%. I don't need that right now. I need the vulnerable damage. So that's a little tip. It will help you pick which one you want to look at, or which gem you want to put into your weapon. All right, looking at the spirit boons, okay? Play with this how you want to, but this is the way that I've got it set up. We're taking the advantageous beast, and the reason is we're farming world tier 4. Sometimes we're solo, sometimes we're with a group. Either way, I don't want to be crowd controlled into oblivion, especially when you're fighting 4 or 5 elites. That's what gets you killed with this build. So we want to reduce those effects as much as possible. For the bird, we're taking the scythe talons, gain 5% increased critical strike chance, We got tons of damage on the backside. I'll show you on the skill tree, but we want to make sure we're trying to get as much chance as we possibly can because we want it to be hitting all the time for that damage, right? So the next one is the deer. We're going to take 2 on the deer. We're going to take pack leader, lucky hit, critical strikes. Y'all, sorry, there's a gnat in here. Critical strikes have up to 20% chance to reset cooldowns of your companion skills. Okay, and then we're going to take energize, dealing damage has up to 15% chance to restore 10 spirit. So as you can see, the build is reliant on lucky hit right now. So that's why I said earlier you want to stack. I can't talk today. When I get excited and start talking, I can't talk. You want to stack lucky hit, strike, chance on everything that you can find it on because it relies on lucky hit. So the more that we're hitting, the more that we're got a chance of lucky hit, the more chance it is to proc all these extras that we need to make the build really work, okay? I really don't like having to base it on lucky hit, but that's what we have to deal with right now, and so that's what you got to look out for. And the last one on the snake here is the Obsidian Slam. Every 20th kill will cause your next Earth skill to overpower, and once you get into higher Nightmare dungeons and higher World Tier 4 stuff, you're going to notice there's a lot of little tiny monsters like spiders and other things. If you're able to wipe them real quick, like you can do with Poison Creeper, that's really easy to obtain. 20 kills is nothing once you start getting to the higher stuff. So that's why I'm taking that. Again, play with this as you want. Play with this whole build as you want to. I just wanted to share you what I'm playing with. Not saying it's expert level, not saying it's God tier. Just something interesting to play with if you're interested in. Again, play with these as you want to. This is just how I have it set up. You might find something that works a little bit better. Let me know in the comments below if you do. Alright, so last thing, let's look at the skill tree. Trying to make this as quick as possible. Thank you for bearing with me. So, a couple of things that I played with here, and you can do it however you want to, really. I decided on Storm Strike because of A, the damage reduction, and you can get it to chain to additional targets. We're really just taking this, like I said, for the DR and for the spirit regen. You could also take Wind Shear if you want to do that. Wind Shear, if you hit through multiple enemies, it will actually gain 3 additional spirit for the first enemy hit. But this one's a ranged, so I started getting annoyed with it when playing with a group. I couldn't reach. I don't know. It just didn't really work in a group where they're really powerful and they're wiping monsters before you can kind of regen your spirit. So I just went back to the Storm Strike. Okay. If you want to get real fancy, you can go Claw and apply the poisoning damage, and that way if you're single attacking one target, it at least has poisoning damage on there, so it's proccing the other stuff that you got going on. I haven't really noticed a difference either way. I like the damage reduction. It's just cheap insurance. Play it how you want to. Let me know in the comments if you find one that works better. I'm not one of these elite guys that's going to tell you, oh, no, like, no, don't play it that way. That's not how I am. I'm never claimed to be an expert. I'm just a Diablo fan, like sharing my stuff with you, what I find. All right, so coming into the core skills, this is where we're going to start investing some points. Max out pulverize, take the middle splitter, and we're going primal pulverize. Enemies hit with pulverize deal 20% reduced damage for 4 seconds. Play with this as you want. If you want the other one, take it. I just like the reduced damage. I don't want these enemies to hurt me. I don't want to give them the opportunity to do that. So, again, also, all your damage relies on you being fortified. So, it just makes sense, right? Sync 3 into Predatory Instinct. Critical strike chance against close enemies is increased by 6%. Now, again, majority of the build, you want to be distant from your enemies, but this just makes sense too because they're going to be on top of you. You might as well have it, right? Last one is Iron Fur. Take 9% damage reduction while in Werebear. A lot of the skills you're casting are going to shapeshift you into Werebear form, and just keeps you with that damage reduction and 3 seconds after you leave that form, so it's natural we're going to take that. Come up here, Heart of the Wild, sync 2 into Heart of the Wild. Now keep in mind, I am missing 2 skill points. I've been lazy, I hadn't finished my Renown, so 2 skill points will kind of fill that up and give you an extra one to play with, but we want maximum spirit right here, so that's why we're taking it. I know a lot of the other build guides call for these 2 right here as well. I just don't have the skill points to to give to them, and I'll just deal with it till I can find the aspect that I need. Moving down the defensive side of the tree, we're taking obviously Earthen Bulwark, take the middle splitter, and then take Preserving Earthen Bulwark. That's every time you cast Earthen Bulwark, you get Fortify. It's 18% base life. Just a normal barrier, like, gotta have it. Again, procs off of the aspect we're using to give you more damage when the barrier is active. All right, coming down to Debilitating Roar. To me, this is the most important badass skill that any class has or whatever, but the Druid should always take it. And I know some of y'all are going to say, well, that's stupid, I don't want that. Well, let me tell you why I always take it. 70% DR. So any enemy that's affected by Debilitating Roar deals 70% less damage for 4 seconds. Not just for the Druid, but for the whole party. So if you're playing in a party, you're playing high-end content, and you're a Druid, make sure you have Debilitating Roar, because your party will thank you later. I did have people in the beginning of the game where we were doing some, I won't say high-end stuff, but let's say we were level 55 and we were trying to do some advanced stuff in World Tier 4, trying to cheat a little bit. I brought DR. We were able to get through it with a couple of the stronger characters like Rogue and Barbarian. After I wasn't there, they tried to help some other people out and noticed it was extremely hard, and it was very noticeable that that damage reduction shout was there. So make sure you use it. Make sure it's on your tool tip, toolbar, whatever you call it. Come down, take the middle splitter, okay? This just guarantees you get Fortify for 22% of your base life. So remember, we got Fortify coming from Debilitating Roar. We got Fortify coming from Preserving Earthen Bulwark. So we got 2 sources of it at least. After you take the middle splitter, come down and take the slow enemies by 65%. Again, another crowd control. We want everything crowd control. And if they're slowed for 65%, it's 4 seconds, by the way. They're not going to bum rush you. So that really helps prevent the group from getting bum rushed and you from getting bum rushed. If you're playing solo, whatever it is, it's a good thing to take. Coming here, 6 points we got to invest. Ancestral Fortitude, increase your non-physical resistance by 15%. And then we need Vigilance, okay? Gain 15% damage reduction after using a defensive skill. Just makes sense. Again, all goes back to Fortify. We want Fortify. So if we're taking damage reduction and all this, we're going to keep Fortify up, right? All right, move down. Sink 1 into the Companion. So we're going to do Poison Creeper. That's Hawg's personal favorite right now. And the reason I like using it, I know a lot of y'all are going to say, this is so stupid. Why aren't you using Grizzly Rage? Poison Creeper sucks. La 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 la. Y'all, I played D2 a long time, played D3 also, but I liked playing Druid on D2, and it just felt lackluster to me back in the day after it was released, and this actually does stuff. So when you cast Poison Creeper, poisons everything in the area, it immobilizes them, and it deals that poison damage over time. So the reason that we're taking it, after we take the splitter, which just makes the immobilized duration increase 1 second, is the Brutal Poison Creeper. Critical strike chance against enemies poisoned by the Poison Creeper or strangled. So during the immobilized phase, they take they give you 20% increased critical strike chance. So let me reiterate that, because I know that didn't make any sense. You hit them with Poison Creeper, they're immobilized for 4 seconds. When they're immobilized, they also give you 20% critical strike chance. So when you hit them, they're just about gonna be critical strike when they're hit with the Poison Creeper. That's the main reason, well, one of the reasons, probably the biggest reason that we're taking it, is that right there. One of the big reasons. There's a bunch of reasons I'm taking it. Scroll on down. Now, just a note here. I have played with it. I have stacked max in here. I have maxed this out. I've played around with a bunch of different things on this side, and the best way that I can find to work it is just to use Poison Creeper as the proc for all this stuff. It still does pretty good amount of poison and damage, so you don't have to invest a lot of skill points into it. All right, coming down to our Wrath section of the skill tree, we're going to sink we're going to sink one into Trample. I have items that are giving me 4 more, okay? 1 into Trample. This is our movement speed. Also makes you unstoppable, so if you get crowd controlled, you can break out of that. This is one of 2 ways to become unstoppable. The first way is the second way is to cast Earthen Bulwark. So you have 2 options to get out of there. You also get lucky hit chance from Trample, okay? So no, I forgot about talking about it. So 22% on this one. We go up to Pulverize. We're going to get 28% lucky hit chance. So keep that in mind for when I show you how to turn all this on. Take the middle splitter. This gives you 150% bonus damage. The bonus is reduced by 50% for each enemy hit after the first. And then the bottom one, Cast and Trample, grants 20 spirit. You can change this if you have the aspect that gives you resource when you crowd control an enemy. I don't have that. I messed up. I found it a perfect roll drop really early. I salvaged it on accident because I was in a zombie stupor of no sleep, and I have yet to find it ever since. So I've had to build around that problem. So Cast and Trample while you're actually in combat and you need to use it will give you 20 spirit back and allow you to continue the fight, at least temporarily, until your cooldowns reset or whatever. But casting this, you'll see with that aspect, it makes a bunch of pillars come out of the ground, and that alone, all of those pillars and the area of effect that it does, that can proc your lucky hit by itself and build all of your spirit, all of that back up. All right, take 1 to Neurotoxin. This makes every enemy that we poison slow, which is a crowd control. So poison's a damage over time, but stacking the damage over time with a slow effect turns it into a damage over time with a crowd control. So all enemies that are poisoned are now slowed, which means all enemies that are poisoned are crowd controlled. That's really cool to me. That's why we're taking it. And then we're going to kind of go cheat sheet here, and we're going to take Envenom to the max, and then you're going to want to look for that item that gives you, this is what I was showing you earlier, this item right here gives you +2 to the Envenom passive. So if you find this on an amulet, keep that. Whatever you got to do, keep it. You want to look for this, find it, roll it, do whatever you got to do. You want that on this build. It is necessity to make this badass, okay? I mean, not absolutely necessity, because you can still have a cool build without it, but what it does is poison enemies take 50% additional critical strike damage. So poison enemies, 20% increased critical strike chance, 50% additional critical strike damage. So that's why we're taking all of this, and that's why we want the +2. We want to stack that up 50%. That +2 makes it up to 50. Invest heavily in these 3 here. 3 into Crush and Earth. Earth skills deal 15% increased damage to basically anything that's crowd controlled. Slowed, which is what we're doing. Stunned, which is, I believe the Trample does stun. Does it stun also? Yep, Trample stuns, okay. Mobilized, doing that with Poison Creeper. Or knockback enemies, we're doing that with Trample. So we're bringing literally every single solitary one of those. We want Earth skills 15% every time we do that. Then we're going to go Safeguard. I got 2 points into this. Critical strikes with Earth skills fortify you for 4% of your base life. Again, we're going to be critical striking all the time, so we want to make sure that we're got that fortify happening all the time. And Stone Guard, 2 of these. While you have fortify for over 50% of your maximum life, your Earth skills deal 8% increased damage. You can play around with this. You can take one out of here and put it in here if you want the 12% damage. I just like to balance them out a little bit, and like I said, I was missing 2 points from the back end of the renown system, so those can fill out those 2 spots or whatever if you already have those. Okay, here's where it gets controversial at the end, okay? I am not taking an ultimate skill, and I know it's going to turn a lot of y'all off, but again, this is just something to play with. Go try it out. You don't have to use it. You don't have to build this way. It is an interesting take on how to do it without Grizzly Rage. Grizzly Rage takes up a lot of aspects. Grizzly Rage, it's a cool skill, but I don't know, it's just, I don't want to be in bear all the time. I like playing around with different stuff. So to me, it's kind of just being in the bear all the time. This just gives it a little flavor. I'm finally starting to have fun with the game. It took a long time. It was a lot of grind. It was a lot of this, a lot of that. And now that I've got something working, this is fun. So this is why I'm sharing it. Okay. It doesn't have to be made. It doesn't have to be the best of the best, because I know there's going to be a lot of y'all in the comments that are saying this is stupid, why are you doing this? It's actually a lot of fun. So anyway, no Grizzly Rage. We're syncing all passives back here, and we're taking a key passive. So sync 1 into Defiance. Nature Magic skills deal 4% increased damage to elites. Now keep in mind, Trample, Nature Magic skill. Pulverize, Nature Magic skill. Make sure you're looking under the rank and all. It'll tell you exactly what all of those skills are if you're unsure. So if you don't know if it's shape-shifting, if you don't know if it's nature magic or whatever, look here and see. It will also populate based on what aspects that you have on. So if I were to take off the aspect that makes pulverize, or an earth skill, excuse me, makes pulverize an earth skill. Take that off, it would no longer be an earth skill. It would just say nature magic, okay? So we're taking that, then we're taking natural disaster. Earth skills deal 4% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Now, you can invest more into this. It's probably a better idea to sink maximum into this, but again, do it your way. It also helps with storm skills, but again, so earth skills, the vulnerable, you'll see in the Paragon board here in a second, the first thing that we've got every time we do damage, well, the first wave of damage to enemies makes them vulnerable, so we want to have this just for extra damage. Another option for you to do is sink a couple into this one. Nature magic skills deal 2% increased damage. Triple this bonus if an earth skill is the next skill cast after a storm skill, or vice versa. So what that means is, because we have Storm Strike as our primary, you could cast Storm Strike once and then cast your earth skill, and it's going to have increased damage. Okay, so triple damage if you do it in the correct succession. It's too hard for me to manage right now. Still learning the game. Trash player, all of that good stuff. This could be something that comes into effect later. I think there's going to be a lot of room to play with certified shape-shifting builds, but we'll see what happens when we find more items, get more Paragon, etc. This one here, quick shift. When a shape-shifting skill transforms you into a different form, it deals 10% increased damage. So same thing. See, we're in human form right now. We're slashing away, we're slashing away, we're slashing away. And then if we cast trample, it has shape-shifted us. So you can see trample shape-shifting under the identifiers here. We've shape-shifted, so that skill automatically procs the quick shift, which makes that skill deal 10% more damage. So again, you can sink one in here if you want to. You can kind of balance these around as you want. Defensive posture, we're taking 3 there. Increases the amount of fortify you gain from all sources. I'm not going to keep beating the dead horse about fortify, you know. Thick hide, whenever you're stunned, immobilized, knocked down, you are fortified. And nature's reserve, 5% chance when struck to fortify you. So if you've got a big mob around you and they're hitting you, you can fortify as well. And then the big one here, we're taking Earthen Might. Okay? Lucky hit. Damaging enemies with Earth skills has 5% chance to restore all of your spirit, cause all of your attacks to be guaranteed strikes, critical strikes, for 5 seconds. This chance is increased by 10% for critical strikes, by 10% if the target is stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. Well, guess what? We're bringing stun, immobilize, and knock back with 2 different skills. So we've got about a 25% chance. Sorry, I went to Georgia Public Schools. My elementary math is not very good, but 25% chance to do all of this that we want on lucky hit. So that's, again, why I was saying lucky hit, lucky hit, lucky hit, lucky hit. You can actually do this right here. You can do all of your setup properly. You can get your lucky hit to proc pretty quick just with trample by itself. It's pretty awesome. Sorry about the rambling. It is a pretty extensive build. That's how I got it set up. So going into the Paragon board, it's a little tricky. We path for damage here. Okay. The first one we take is the glyph, the exploit glyph. So every 5 dexterity purchase within range, you deal 1.9% increased damage to vulnerable targets. And when an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. This cannot happen every 20 seconds. This one right here is the very first one that you should ever take, in my opinion. Like I said earlier, vulnerable enemies take 20% more damage. So why wouldn't you want that every time you deal damage to them for every 20 seconds, that they're vulnerable? It just makes sense. Again, like I said back in the beginning of the video, long videos kind of wear me out. You need to stack vulnerable damage on that weapon, because right now, as we said, I showed y'all, we're dealing almost 50% additional damage to vulnerable enemies, so it just makes sense. There's plenty of guides about how we path this online. Okay, I highly encourage you to check yourself, but what we're doing here is 1, 2, 3 boards. We're working our way towards our 4th board. The second board we're taking is the poison board here. Heightened Malice, I believe that's what the board is called, Heightened Malice. While there are 3 or more poison enemies nearby, you deal 45% increased damage. So we want to kind of path our way up, come in here, take these yellows 12 poison resistance. You're going to encounter a lot of poison out there. You want to make sure you're as resistant as possible, and it's also going to help you with PvP because the Storm Wolf and the Rogue are using poison. So the more poison resistance you have stacked up, the better you can do on PvP as well. We're pathing this way. We're just taking these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're taking these 6 right here just to get to Heightened Malice, okay? Work your way up. Take the Toxic Bane. 10% poison damage, 10% damage to poison enemies. Again, stack that damage. Don't worry about any of this up here just yet. Go ahead, truck your way along. Make your new board. Your new board is the Earth and Devastation one, okay? Link it up so that your node looks like this here in the center. Come in, come down, grab these damage to crowd control enemies. These plus 15% damage, plus 15% critical strike damage to crowd control. Okay, take all of these right here. This is just going to boost. That's what, 10, 20, 25. It's close to 40, 42, something like that. Take it. Then continue. I went straight for the glyph. Opened the glyph up, and then I opened up Earth and Devastation, or you can go vice versa. Your Earth skills deal 30% increased damage to enemies affected by crowd control. So we've got the poison one, and we've got this one. And they work together because all poison enemies are slowed. It just makes sense, right? So come in, open this up. The one that I've got in here right now is Werebear. So something to think about when you're working with glyphs. You see that the requirements are willpower. All of these other glyphs have different ones. This one's willpower, this one's dexterity, this one's willpower, this one's intelligence, etc., etc. If you cannot meet that intelligence or dexterity or whatever based on that glyph, then don't use it for that point in time. You might need to actually upgrade it, because every time you upgrade the glyph, the radius size increases and you're able to cover more ground. So for this one here, before I decided what to sink in there, I looked around at the Paragon board and I said, okay, what do we have a lot of? The first one I saw was, I always look at the rare node and see what it gives. That's going to tell me which one to pick right away. This one gives plus 10 willpower. Okay, that's going to basically tell me I'm stuck using a willpower one there, because if I try to take this out and put something else like intelligence, I'm really not going to have, if we look here, we got 5, 10, 15. We don't have enough intelligence based on the radius of this glyph to actually activate the additional bonus, which is really what you need. So we look at it and we say, okay, I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 4. There's plenty of willpower. Plenty. So that's what we're going to do, is put the willpower in there, and then it's activated. We gain 14.8% damage while in Werebear form, and gain 10% damage reduction while in Werebear form. That is our primary form. You don't have to take the armor that gives you permanent Werebear. I feel like you're slower in permanent Werebear form. That could just be my perception of it, but you do want the damage reduction. So again, just path down. You want to take these last little nodes right here. More Earth skill, more critical strike damage to crowd control enemies. Stack all of that. So from where I'm at, you will hit really hard. Like I said, I've seen some really monstrous hits. My average is about 200,000 or 300,000, and I have seen an 800,000. That was real random. I really don't know what I did to proc that one, but there is some massive amounts of damage that you can get going with this build. I think it's interesting. You might think it's cool, but I just wanted to try some different stuff out with the Druid. I know there's going to be other things that we can play with, and I'm working on another build right now to try to help us out, pushing up some more stuff. But I know there's some Storm Druid stuff coming out, but maybe this is one you hadn't seen before. It's something I've been working on for a long time. And y'all, I know there is no easy group find mechanic in the game, so if you need a group or a community to run with, the House of Hawg, We Ain't Mild, We Wild, link is in the description below for my Discord. Y'all, please come over there and join. We got a big community. It's very active. We got clan over there. We got all kind of stuff. We got build guides, resources, a hardcore group, all kind of stuff going on over there. Make sure you do that. Like I said, links in the description below. If you want to consider supporting the channel, Patreon's down there. There's all kind of other things you can do. Appreciate y'all. Speaking of appreciation, and make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Hawg content. About 60% of y'all that like this channel, watch this channel, are not subscribed. So do me a favor, hit subscribe. That'll help us really grow. And appreciate y'all. See you next time.